Okay, here we go. First ban Alistar, SKT responds by banning Gangplank. It's completely fine. These are all major bans. Seer gets banned, and then obviously like the Mordekaiser's gonna come in eventually. Sorry, spoilers. Lulu gets banned. The other thing that I think should be mentioned is that I feel like since this is only very early into Worlds group stages, I think all of the bans mostly do not use any sort of reference other than solo queue or other than the games that these teams played before it. I don't think they're using any data from LPL, LCK, etc. Because I think that's too long ago. EDG first picks Callista. This is pretty standard because it's an extremely flexible pick. It's very good blind. SKT. SKT respond jungler support, and it's important to list it as jungler support because the picks are relevant, but determining what roles get picked in what order is also crucial to pick and ban phases, and I think that's something that doesn't get talked about enough. I don't know 100% if they need to show Rek'Sai yet, because, well, I guess they view him as a highly contested pick given that Elise is already gone. But yeah. Darius gets locked in. I think teams need to stop doing this. I understand that Darius is really strong, but he's not strong to the point where he just rolls people over. It's actually really surprising to see teams picking Darius blind as much as they are, because he does have counter picks, he does have counter play, and while he is like a Leviathan, it doesn't. He's not literally must pick worthy, and we can see that because he gets third rotated. So they go Darius, Annie. The Annie is like okay, but I don't like it too much. They respond with Renekton and Sivir. This kind of worried me, but it didn't worry me, because similar to like what Monty said after the game, Renekton is one of Marin's most played champions throughout history. So I feel like they have this prepared. But the Sivir pick, I don't know if I completely agree with it. But they were going for, at this point, you can see that they have an engaged comp. You can see that they have an extremely aggressive composition. And so then the onus is on EDG to react and see how are you going to do anything about that. I think the Echo pick is a little bit questionable, but I can understand it from some perspectives because Echo is really strong blind. The other thing is that I think when SKT picks this way, they basically telegraph, what their mid laner is going to be, or what style, I'm sorry, not what the mid laner is going to be, but what style it's going to be. And Rise comes in to round out the utility in the hard engage. And then you saw Pawn switch from Ignite to Teleport, because realistically you don't have too much kill potential inside of this lane. And it is the dual Teleport meta. Rise benefits a little bit more than Echo from Teleport. And then Rise also has the power spike from being red side Rise. Do we call it red side or blue side or purple side? I guess we call it red now. We're evolving. Red side Rise has the edge in terms of the power spike in this lane, and then also the teleport favors him. Other than that, there's other... Oh, hold on. There's other stuff that is clear-cut, like in terms of issues with the team comps, but it's something that can't be circumvented via lane swaps or lane swap matching. Blue side Darius versus red Renekton. Ooh, why is the sound on? I don't want the sound on. No, they're just getting ready to go off stage. There's other stuff that, like, you can talk about, you know, when you're factoring the pick and bans and everything, you know, when they're going into the loading screen and stuff. And that's what this time is obviously for. It's to talk about, you know, what are you going to do with your opening, how are you going to react to it, you know, to give you prep. I don't like the fact that, I don't know. I felt a little bit worried for SKT's composition because I feel like it's reliant on a myriad of factors. I think EDG's is a lot more flexible, and SKT really has to just hit the nail on the head with everything that they do. That's completely fine. Now, see, the openings and stuff that is going to be happening in Worlds games and stuff, it's basically only going to be a result of scrim results, and you really don't have too much information to go off of. So, for anyone to try to read too deeply into what people are going to do level 1 and stuff is still going to be really difficult because you have no history to use. So I think by pointing this way, SKT neutralizes any sort of attempt at a lane swap. They gain control of the left side jungle, and then they force them into the right hand side, and then as a team they move in to the right side jungle, but they don't cross the river intentionally because they just want to control. Ugh. Sinuses. EDG comes in, throws the flag over the wall just to see, you know, if anything's going on. Now, they have a ward here, so it's not so bad. They're just gonna take the blue. So, okay, this is the very beginning of it all. Okay, they wanted confirmation that they were gonna go in for the blue. Okay, because there's alternatives to this. It does not have to be Jarvan going in here with Darius. There's ways that, you know, Jarvan and Darius can show up around here. Okay, the same way that Rek'Sai and Renekton are, you know, gonna double jungle. Okay, and if that ends up happening, then all that it means is that this has been surrendered temporarily, and it's just gonna be, you know, SKT doing line swap and then EDG, you know, playing standard. But when they go in and they get the blue or whatever, Braum realizes, hey, I'm not needed here. Because even if Annie backs up at this point, she has no utility. So let's say that, you know, Annie backs up and Kalista backs up. They're not going to recall after this, right? So what's going to end up happening is it's going to be, you know, 4 people one side, Sivir's in top lane, Sivir does a slow freeze. Okay, Braum realizes that he's not needed. So Braum can now at this point go and roam because he realizes that no matter what, he's just going to match Annie. And SKT actually benefits more from this because they get the double jungle, whereas EDG earlier committed, you know, more resources. They invested more into what they did. They didn't reap as much of a reward. So when Braum comes here, this is extremely powerful because Ryze's level 2 power spike, you know, with the Rune Prison and stuff, they can easily get either a kill on Echo or they can get his flash. There's no way for EDG to match this because they had the ward inside of the blue, so they know that, you know, if Annie just goes down, it is highly unlikely that Annie can go to mid because Annie doesn't have any utility level 1. So if Annie doesn't have any utility level 1, if Annie is a support that is a little bit more reliant on levels than, say, like, you know, like Morgana has a lot of power level 1. Braum, a lot of power level 1. Nautilus, a lot of power level 1. Annie can have power level 1 if she opens W and stacks it, but if that's going to be the case, they can know that that's coming. So what ends up happening is they realize that Annie is being useless down here, because really all that matters is going to be Sivir versus Callista, okay, in the grand scheme of things in terms of XP and stuff. Whether or not Braum falls behind Annie is completely irrelevant, because the level 6 power spike sort of a thing is not going to be any sort of a timing that is going to be used in this kind of a game when the lane swaps have already been initiated. So by doing that, Braum is able to basically say, hey, I can have less XP than you, and what in turn I'm going to do is I am going to accelerate Sivir, I'm going to accelerate Ryze, I will accelerate my jungler, and I will accelerate my top laner. Annie, however, is going to deaccelerate his AD carry, etc., all across the board. So this roam is perfect. Now, Wolf could be, again, he could be Morgana doing this, he could be Nautilus doing this, he could be Annie with W doing this. This is not something that is specific to Braum, it is specific to the piece. So if we're talking about it from like a chess perspective, this is just a piece that does a certain move or something, okay? And the move in this case is, a very hard CC level 1 type of support utility. You don't just have to look at this like Braum. However, Faker did not have level 2. If Faker has level 2 there, they easily get Pawn's Flash. You saw him running over to the right-hand side jungle because you had Darius and Jarvan, there to cover him. And now they're just going to go do the red, and then Rek'Sai, etc. is just going to go do, the blue. Braum goes back to top lane because he doesn't want to fall too far behind, and he has now lost utility to do anything else. They get the wolves first, and then they go and do the blue. This will maximize the duration of the blue buff in the event that anything takes place, so I think it's completely fine. Whereas Jarvan and Darius ended up doing red first, which is less efficient. Now, the other issue with this is that if you look at the map, okay, if they do this to this, okay, to this, to this, to this, to this, to this, it lines up for a 4-man, okay? However, Jarvan cannot actually match that, or Jarvan and Darius can't match that. So, basically what this ends up forcing is you're going to end up trading the tier 1 tower, okay, for Dragon. Almost 90% of the time. The only other thing that could end up happening is if they do red, they can potentially then gank Ryze, but then Ryze knows that and all he has to do is play West-centric inside of the lane, and what I mean by that is he just has to hug this crescent, and then he can use his warding trinket when it is up to just drop a ward here, and everything is completely neutralized. If Annie goes missing into the Fog of War, you know exactly what's coming. Everything EDG is doing from this point is telegraphed, and they've consistently been one step behind SKT the entire way. If you end up taking the Dragon, then immediately what you have to do is then go for a responsive 4-man onto this tower by pooling and slow pushing a wave, but EDG can't do that at this point because they've already manipulated the wave too poorly to do that type of a play. So they're already really far behind. So this is like basically getting an extremely bad position in chess early. This is like so poor. And so now they call for the Dragon. They realize that Rek'Sai was not going to be needed in top lane, and so because Rek'Sai isn't going to be needed in top lane... Okay, now I have the pause active on the play button. Sorry about that. Now, this is also very important. They give the kill to Renekton. You notice 275 gold. That's basically a kill. They did not split it up amongst, Sivir. They did not split it up against, Braum, etc. So they gave the entire kill to Renekton. That is extremely crucial. So this is what I'm talking about. You have the 4-man Dragon, but Rek'Sai, what do you notice? He's already beating Jarvan to the punch, okay? Rek'Sai is already out and on the map, and so now, after they do the reset, so they're going to recall after this, and then now they're going to go to their respective lanes. Rek'Sai is in position, while EDG is completely clueless about anything. They are playing completely in the Fog of War. So now, initiative is in SKT1's favor, and the gold that is granted globally by the tower is able to neutralize the early Dragon stats. Because I know that it was mentioned during the cast that, I think Freak said it or something. He was right that, Callista had like an extra 6 AD or something because of the Dragon buff, and Sivir only has an Avarice Blade. But Sivir is able to go for an Avarice Blade because Sivir is now going to reset into the bottom lane, and they're going to send... Marin top. And when you do something like that, you can basically say to yourself, okay, dragon's not up, alright? They cannot gank us from this position. They know that all of this is dead. This is completely dead territory. So when you have this as dead territory, what you can do is you can pink brush here, protect Rise, okay? You can then just play around this. This is all you have to play around now as SKT. Sivir just has to go Avarice Blade, and then go Ward, Shutdown. There's absolutely nothing that Jarvan can do from this angle, and when you're facing a red side bot lane, Jarvan has a lot less gank utility, just because of the angles and the dynamics of the lane. Let's say that Jarvan comes in from here, or something. Ooh, sorry. Let's say that Jarvan comes in from bot lane, okay? So follow along with my mouse here, alright? So we're going down here, okay? Let's say Jarvan comes in from bot lane, okay? And there's a ward here. It is highly unlikely that he can close the gap as long as they stall the lane in the very middle. If he comes in for a lane gank, Jarvan is not a jungler that really has lane gank utility in bot lane. He can't really do anything in front of Dragon because then he's completely wasting his time. He's coin flipping if Rek'Sai is going to be East-centric. He doesn't really have counter jungle on Gromp utility. He doesn't have counter jungle on Wolves utility. He has absolutely no dive utility against a red side jungle. So by taking the dragon, he basically forks himself into playing west side centric, which is exactly what Rek'Sai wants to be playing, and they can completely shut down and again neutralize the entire east portion of the map with a simple pink ward, thus protecting Faker and also protecting Bang and Wolf. And so now they go back to their respective lanes. Sivir acknowledges that this is going to be what is going to happen, and so goes Avarice Blade, because it's like adding salt to the wound. You don't necessarily need to just keep getting further ahead. I think that's a very amateur mindset. I think taking investments and playing correctly and adequately and punishing mistakes is always a superior, play style. So everything is fine here. You notice that they have a big wave right now, so if Jarvan, for some reason, okay, now you notice that there's also deep wards, because, again, they took the timing of EDG's temporary weakness and lack of map control, because wards had to be devoted to securing the dragon and maintaining their safety and stuff, to completely shut down the east side. So Jarvan can't do anything here. If for some reason he did decide to go bottom and he was spotted, it's all too easy for SKT to back up because the lane was already shoved into the tower, so it'll shove back into them, and then the overall net gain is, you're looking at like 500 gold, Rek'Sai versus Jarvan. It's basically a kill and an assist just via movements. Now you notice that Rek'Sai has a complete clear, and what side of the jungle do you notice he clears out? He clears out the entire east side. Why does he clear the east side? Because he has no business being here anymore. He understands that Jarvan can only be west-centric, and so all he has to do is be west-centric. Because his team is so far ahead at this point, all they have to do is not allow anything to happen. They just simply have to tie a noose around EDG, and then just hold. That's it. The onus is completely on Jarvan to do something. Or it's on, Deft and Mako to get some sort of a kill, but that's just not going to happen. It is completely unrealistic. Now, the other thing that you notice is that they have to invest more gold into top lane than SKT. And the reason that I say that is because Darius, early on, is extremely unsafe. These two wards do not protect Jarvan against a Rek'Sai. All Faker has to do at this point is play semi-eccentric, and he has to play on top of his tower. This is a mechanical error by Faker. This is some of the stuff that I talked about. It's very unusual to see him making these kind of mistakes. Bengi just clears that. And now you'll probably notice that, because he knows Bengi is here, he just starts to play the left side of the lane, west-centric, and during this entire time that Faker is playing west-centric and Bengi is covering him via West Side River, and Renekton has the freeze up here, they know that the only possibility for anything to occur is going to be east-centric now at this point. So it's kind of like, you're just mirroring EDG, because you know that nothing can happen that way. So this is what I talked about. You can't do anything, Blue Jarvan. What are you gonna do? You don't have any utility. So they end up getting the tower, and now the problem with getting this tower, however, though, is that SKT has the option of creating a dead lane, or like a Bank of America lane. You know, something that they can just pull up and, you know, invest in. They don't have to necessarily make any use of it. Renekton shoves Darius all the way in. Now, this was, I believe, the mistake of Darius, or did it... I can't remember at what point it occurs. We're gonna see right now, though. So he just does a ward down here. This is very safe because it basically protects him against Jarvan, because Jarvan doesn't have any utility to just do a lane gank. So that'll spot Jarvan if he goes for any sort of EQ over Wolves to clear Wolves or gank him. And it's highly unlikely that this route will ever be taken. Then he backs up anyway, and you notice that there is a lot of relief timings. You can notice that they are pulsating the waves in their favor, you know, to do whatever. Now, here is where EDG drops the ball. So I believe this might be the point in the cast where it's talked about that Jarvan is doing something incorrect by freezing the lane. But in reality, freezing the lane, this is where the error takes place. SKT messes up, because if Jarvan just freezes this right now, okay, they are completely aware of when Dragon is going to be needed. They have the teleport. They don't need to do anything. SKT has 2 now dead lanes. The only lane where anything can be actually active, if EDG does anything, is going to be mid lane at this point. All Darius needs to do is just freeze this, because with Ryze Renekton, nothing can happen in mid lane. It is irrelevant if Renekton shows up in bot lane or anything. Nothing can actually happen without Marin investing more resources than Darius, and as long as you acknowledge that and you're aware of that and you just ward defensively and you lock down, all they need to do is lock this. That's it. They need to, like, go full fucking Coup Tiger, Spring Split style, and just defensive ward everything and just neutralize any sort of attempts at, you know, gank shenanigans and whatever. And through that, it'll allow Darius to recover probably about 4 waves. And so that would be absolutely perfect. So it would be a mistake for Darius to shove the lane. And he does make a mistake by shoving the lane, because you gain absolutely nothing from it. If you shove the lane back into SKT, then yes, you have a wave at their tier 2 tower when the dragon's up, but then if you end up losing the dragon for some, you know, unknown reason, and then you look at your top lane, you're going to be like, well, shit. Because all that's going to happen is then at that point, they will 1-4-0, and you just lose. Because you can't send someone bot lane at that point. You can't send Sivir bot lane to shove it back into the bot tower. Because if you shove it into the bot tower after Dragon's been taken, then what do you do? You give SKT a 600 GPM advantage over you that you're just not getting. So it's kind of like you have even bank funds, okay? You have like even, or you know, you have even funds or whatever, and then SKT actually has like a reserve bank that just freely gets them 600. You know, like, you can't do anything to that. So this is all futuristic. Again, it's, you know, it's 2 minutes, 3 minutes into the future, but you can't be making plays like this. Macro-wise, it's not acceptable. Also, Mako should not be in bot lane anymore. Mako should be, you know, applying pressure either to Ryze, or, you know, Mako should be trying to defensive ward up, you know, the red side jungle, whatever. Kallista's little wraith things, they don't really matter. And so now here's the problem that you go into, where, okay, second dragon's coming up, and now Renekton can just completely freeze it. And then if Renekton freezes it, and you walk to dragon, okay, they can either just give up the second dragon, which some people might be like, oh, well, you know, you can't just give up the second dragon. Well, actually, yes, you can, because if you give up the second dragon, well, yes, you still have 2 tier 1 outer turrets remaining. They can't do anything after that, because then the bot lane is going to shove into SKT. They can't do anything off it. What's going to end up happening is they have to commit 4 people to mid, and because of the item power and everything, you can't do anything on mid. You don't have any sort of poke. You don't have any sort of siege. The only thing that you have is some sort of like pseudo engage, but that doesn't do anything. You can't pseudo engage against Ryze, Sivir, and Braum. You know, if they're literally just a few centimeters in front of their turret. And then what ends up happening is Renekton just isolates top lane, and you crush your own bot lane, and you crush your own top laner. So this is really poor play. This isn't solo queue. And now they're going for some sort of a gank. I think this is kind of okay because they're looking to try to make a snipe before the dragon comes up, because this would basically mean that it's a free dragon, and then it would allow them to work around the issues that we just talked about having 2 dead lanes. But I mean, it also speaks to itself that you can notice that all the laners are losing. In terms of like CS and in terms of positioning, because the way that they're orchestrating how the wave will push forward and how fast it'll push forward is just completely killing them. Now SKT commits. I think Ryze coming in like this against the pink ward is actually fine, but I guess Faker knows at this point that he messed up, and he ends up dying. I think let's go over this really quick. Alright, so first off, now let's say in a hypothetical scenario that Faker does not be greedy. I think SKT makes it a complete blunder here because they don't recognize that the second dragon is basically suicide for EDG if they go for it, which is kind of weird. But if SKT go for it, EDG gains ground. So it's kind of like something that they just have to allow to stay up, which I guess is a little bit weird, but it's, it's whatever. When Ryze auto attacks, I guess this ward or something, he can't be moving up into this area. Okay, like Ryze, if he's gonna auto this, he always needs to auto it for standing here, or he needs to be moving upwards here, in which case he would just need to be standing like here and then try to move here. But even this is a little bit safe against Echo's angle of trajectory and the fact that Jarvan can easily EQ, anywhere over here. And with Cataclysm's reach, the reach goes even further. So if he EQs over, he can hit Ryze anywhere between here. Okay, and then when you factor in speed, he can catch him here, and then with Cataclysm's reach, he can catch him here. So this is all unsafe. So the only way around this, obviously, is via a flash. But if you're here, or here, or here, he can still catch you. So the only option is to realistically be here, or somewhere over here at the second line. That way you can flash over. But overall, it's unsafe. You shouldn't be doing that. Let Rek'Sai or Braum get closer to you before you do anything like that. It's too risky. Because you don't need dragon. You can easily just basically say, hey, we're not going to get dragon, you're not either, we're going to keep the lanes going like this because we're squashing you. And so now Renekton wastes his teleport, and now Darius has the nuts. He has the absolute nuts. All you have to do here, okay, is you get the dragon, okay, and you need to leave one person in mid. But if you leave one person in mid, it's a little bit unsafe because then they come in as 4. So in this scenario, alright, let's go back a little bit when they kill Faker. Because they only have a short timing window, because you have to consider that Faker has teleport, okay? When this happens, you have one of 2 choices. Now, the minion wave is not big enough, it's only 3, so you can't actually... Well, actually, no, I'm sorry. I completely forgot about Tibbers. In this situation, bring Callista up, okay? Bring Callista up here. Have Annie drop a ward here, and then just try to take the tower. That is the absolute best macro play, because after you shove in this tower, you kill it, and you deny vision, okay? And you create a fog of war for all of this, okay? All of this becomes fog of war for SKT. Then you can get the dragon, because then the resources required to invest into obtaining the dragon fighting background is a little bit too risky if EDG just simply gains control over the strait, which is like right here, okay? So EDG's play when they kill Ryze should never be to go dragon. It should just be to get mid tower. The alternative thing that I was talking about without with having a temporary lapse and considering Tibbers was you leave one person here and then you commit the other 3 to dragon. And when you do that, if for some reason Braum and Rek'Sai end up backing up into the strait and they go up behind their blue and they come in, okay, while you're making your way over here, you can have Mako drop some sort of a ward on the backside, and then you can do a flank teleport before Ryze is actually able to get there and spawn. And off of that, you may be able to acquire 1 kill or 2 kills or something. And then you'll also get the dragon. Top lane will be beautiful for you, bot lane will be beautiful for you, mid lane will be neutral, and then it just allows you to recover in the game by simply isolating and freezing everything that's going on. But these decisions are all bad. Because now, SKT can basically be like, oh, okay, you messed up. So SKT can now say, okay, we're going to have Renekton walk here, and then what you do is, as SKT, you gain control over this brush, you gain control over between River and Wraiths, and then you just 4-man the tower. And now what happens to EDG is, okay, they clear the dragon, then what do? After dragon's gone? You you can't go to mid, you're going to lose your mid tier 1. So, okay, you end up having the 3 people run here, but wait, now you get cut off here too. Well, now you can't do anything here. So you end up having to waste so much time, and you end up wasting about 2.5 waves of resources. And then if you also brought Darius down for whatever reason, you also lose a lot of power in top lane, because then what's going to end up happening is the lane is going to reset, and it's going to lock around here. In which case, you're gonna lose ground on this. You're going to lose vision control over this portion of the map right here. Okay, Faker is going to reset here. And then you are going to end up resetting back in bot lane. You're going to shove it back into them, and then what's going to happen is Braum is going to stay with Faker, Renekton will reset inside of his lane, and then Rek'Sai will just play coverage between these spots. And from that point, it's sort of like check. It's not checkmate, but it's check. So, you can't do that. When they teleport with Darius, it's obviously forced because SKT went for a fight. These are more coin flippy. This is a very micro-oriented approach. I think this is not correct decisions, you know, in the long run, but that's okay. Bang ends up dying because Darius, nice champ, but they end up securing Dragon. So this is why you don't want to do coin flips like that. Now you have Faker come down, and this is a nice read. Pawn teleports in. I think Pawn's teleport is actually like really silly because Pawn should die here. So this is what I talked about. Faker should have short flashed. Some people have asked me, what is a short flash? A short flash is simply just literally blinking like 1.5 to 2 centimeters in front. And if he short flashes, then you can actually execute Pawn. And if you get the execute off on Pawn, then Marin and Faker can also continue to stay in bot lane, because you don't actually have to be afraid of Jarvan and Annie at that point, because it's all too easy, you know, for them to assume through Fog of War that someone else is going to be there soon, in which case you get a 1.5 waves of gold. Shove it into the tower, and then allow the wave to shove back into you, and then you use bot as a Bank of America, and you just create a dead lane there. Freeze top, and then you stalemate mid, and the game is locked because there is no major neutral objective to be gained. One thing I'm not doing, and I completely apologize because I haven't done a VOD review in a long time, I'm not talking about items, and I completely apologize for that. The Adverse Blade is also now starting to kick in. Marin, alright, so let's talk about something really quick. Okay. So now everything's reset. Okay. You're EDG. Alright. You can't see what the hell is going on. What do you not want to happen if you're Darius right now? See, this is something I feel like teams don't do enough. Now, yes, Marin is absolutely gigantic. Okay, he's huge. Now, you know, at this point, the top laner is left with no choice but to compromise his own jungler, okay? Now, Jarvan benefits a little bit from the fact that he is not as item-reliant as some other junglers can be. So it's not as painful for him to play a super low economy. However, if you're Marin, there's no reason to shove top as fast as you possibly can. Because what you should be looking to do is you want to look at the stalemate, which is likely to occur in mid lane right now, because this is always going to be the center of attention following the events that already occurred. So if that ends up happening, you want to pull this wave as much as possible. It's going to end up pulling right here, and then you shove it into Darius. And the reason that you do this is because if you gain any sort of footing or any sort of ground in mid, there is all too many ways for your team to crack over into the left-hand side and aid you, or Rek'Sai to go over on the west or left hand side and do any sort of a dive on Darius. The speed at which he did this, I think, is very poor, because with how far ahead he is, it's easy to do dives. So I think this is poor play, poor lane orchestrated, poor lane orchestration. A pawn ends up getting the blue. That's completely fine, but why do you do that when, like, you can't be making plays like this? And you notice what's already happened in bot lane. Even though they have the tier 1 tower that's completely irrelevant to the pressure that's being created on the map, you can't devote resources, again, to the left-hand side or to the right-hand side, and that's what I talked about with Rek'Sai, and that if Rek'Sai comes over here and you have a Renekton right here, then okay, you have 3 in mid, and then you can have 4 in mid, and you have 0 bot, okay? And from here, even with the comps, you cannot just suddenly charge on them 4v3. Nothing will end up happening. So if Rek'Sai is hanging out in your jungle and he's clearing stuff, if he has a sweeper or if he bought a pink ward or whatever, what ends up happening is Jarvan has to go back and Annie has to go back. The two core components to engagement for EDG. And so if that ends up happening, then you have poke utility with Ryze's Q, you have poke utility with Sivir's Q, and you have poke utility with Braum just throwing out his thing. I'm sorry, I don't know what letter it's on. I apologize. And with that happening, you end up divvying up gold between Pawn and Deft, struggling to get the gold resources in mid lane, while SKT will probably most likely get the full gold from lanes that occur there. And so even though no one, SKT nor EDG, are getting any sort of gold resources in bot lane, it doesn't matter because EDG is being forced to invest more resources to actually get less. Sending pawn bot lane is interesting. Although, again, you can't. This is such. I don't know how these mistakes occur. You can't just go and pick up a wave because it's there. Unfortunate, I know. But if you do this, then okay. Right now, look at this. All right, pawn came and he ate a wave. Okay. All that has to happen is they just have to do a 1-3-1. Okay, and if you do a 1-3-1 in this scenario, this is where Sivir gets tier 2 boots, okay? Usually, in situations where it is a siege scenario, or it's a scenario where fights or team fights or movements are likely to occur in a very slow manner, and fights are only going to occur in a siege-type scenario, even in front of Dragon or Baron. And what do I mean by that? I mean, literally, imagine both teams, okay, are like right here, and they just dance back and forth for like 40 seconds. That is the equivalency of a siege or, a poke underneath a tower or something. In that scenario, as an AD carry that is ahead, you can circumvent the need for tier 2 boots and you can simply hold on to a Zeal. But if it's going to be a situation where you can instead do a 1-3-1, and then you can just lock Sivir here and have her move between the two lanes, you can have her move here, and then you can have her move back, etc., accordingly, then you just get the tier 2 boots because the mobility outweighs the punch and the utility that the Zeal would give you. And then Marin already has tier 2 boots, so it's all too easy, even without teleport, to get between point A to point B when the onus is on EDG to do something. So I really don't like how SKT is not like just asphyxiating EDG. Because they have all the resources to do it. Especially with Gromp. And bot lane, Sivir can just permafreeze that for every... Stop, Marin! Can you not push the lane? No? Okay, good. Oh my god. No, he can't. Oh, god. It's very frustrating, because you can see this as an analyst or a coach and be like, well, he's so far ahead, and there's no reason that he doesn't just shove it, because he can just, get Darius under tower and pressure the tower. No, wrong. That's such a very simple, it's such a amateur approach. No patience, it's very tigeristic. And now you have the people that are like, well, you see, LS, he gets a solo kill here because, you know, he was just playing the lane aggressively. No. Because, okay, if he doesn't shove that and the lane is shoved up here, what is Darius gonna do? What does he do? Go eat Gromp? Okay, you hurt Jarvan. What are you gonna do? Eat wolves? Well, now you're hurting Echo. You know, like, or you're potentially hurting Echo or you're hurting Jarvan. No matter what, the gold is not being divided evenly. And because it's not being divided evenly, and even though we talked about Jarvan is a low economy jungler, you're still creating something very awkward. It would be like showing up to like a, you know, a gunfight or like a paintball fight, okay? And your best, not necessarily your best, I guess that makes it a little bit difficult to understand, is you all only have, you know, 10 bullets or something, right? Five people all only have 10 bullets. Even though that is very balanced, it doesn't actually work. That's not how League works. That's not how some other stuff works. Because then what can end up happening is if you all just exhaust your resources, one person runs out of energy, one person gets too tired, one person needs water, etc. There's not someone that can like eat everything and carry you through. Everything's too divvied up, and League is very extremist in some ways. Balance like that doesn't really work. So it's basically just a suboptimal usage of global gold. So now Darius gets killed, and now, yeah, okay, so bot lane shoves it in, and now they're just going to surrender tier 2 tower. But, okay, let's go back to what I was talking about before Darius. So let's talk about the wolf and the Gromp, okay? So if he doesn't shove it, okay, and you let it lock to the best of your ability. I didn't actually look at the minion HP. I don't know if I could see the minion HP because then you can tell if it's going to shove back into SKT or if it's going to slow push or if it's going to fast push or if it's going to glacier. With that being said, okay, so let's say Darius has nothing to do up here. Not only is he being denied temporary XP, okay, his only source of gold income is either going to be to temporarily do Gromp or Wolves if they are up, or it's just going to be the natural, you know, time-based gold income. If that ends up happening when he is completely lacking in itemization, then what ends up happening is EDG, everything that they can do becomes telegraphed. You know exactly where Darius is. If you know where Darius is, that also probably means that you know where Jarvan is. So that's kind of like using no information as information. So even though there is a fog of war, there is places that you can't see, you can use the information that you do see because you've put them into such a negative, you know, a negative gold income position that you know where the jungler is because, you know, he can't be anywhere else, you know? And all that I mean about that is it's sort of like similar to the early game, about like the double jungle versus the decisions that EDG made, etc., and being able to use no info as info to determine, you know, where all the champions were at select points in time. And so, yeah, you're using their own map against them. All right, so now they get the kill here. Just went forward a little bit. So now Darius has his like temporary power spike. Now this is something I talk about a lot. So let's say that, for instance, okay, Renekton is 2,000 gold ahead of Darius. Okay, this is completely hypothetical, alright? It's 2,000 total gold. So if they hit X right now, you know, Renekton has 12,000. And Darius has 10,000. Obviously, that's not the case, but, you know, bear with me, okay? And then, let's say that Darius ends up spending all of his gold, okay? And he has, you know, 60 gold left over after potions and wards. And then he returns to top lane, and Renekton is still in top lane, and Renekton has, you know, 1,100 gold. That means that item-wise, okay, Darius is only technically behind 900 points, and then when you factor in how much excess gold was Renekton left with when he left. So if in reality the item differential is only a cloth armor, then the gap is only actually 600, which is not actually that big compared to the 2,000 until Renekton recalls. And so that opens up what is called a timing attack. And timing attacks are extremely powerful in League, and there's something that can be used to win, a disadvantageous position or something, because the item, the enemy team hasn't recalled yet, or they don't have enough wards to combat a vision congestion or whatever, because they're pooling too much gold. Sort of like, imagine, you're in a team scenario, like a 1v1 competition, and you have 5 players. You have player A, B, C, D, and E, okay? And your absolute best players are D and E, okay? And so, over here you have A, B, C, D, and E, okay? And then what ends up happening is this is just a best of 5. A beats A, B beats B, and C beats B. It doesn't matter how strong D and E were, because you couldn't get to them. So it's kind of like, oh man, the enemy team is doing Baron right now, but I have 3,000 gold. Well, you're probably even with the person that you should be crushing because you haven't recalled. And, timing attacks can be used in this sort of a sense, but they can also be used most notably against Triforce AD carries. You can tell, when they're going to recall, or when are they going to go for this, when are they going to go for that. Yeah. Alright. So now you notice that SKT just continues to lock down vision and not do anything creative, because they realized that EDG cannot come into them, because if EDG comes into them with how the lanes are, it'll always be disadvantageous, unless EDG absolutely crushes the fight, which they can't because they're so far behind. The other problem is that even if you have long lanes, and what I mean by a long lane is, let's say that this is just something out there. Let's say that you have Sivir and Braum overextending right here, and then you have Renekton overextending right here. Well, Jarvan, while he is extremely mobile and he's able to gap close really well, and he's able to do everything, you have to consider the Rek'Sai dynamic. Because Rek'Sai is able to have a more EV farm inside of his own jungle, as opposed to Jarvan, because he can react to something rather than have to be proactive. And what I mean by that is he can be farming a camp that Jarvan was not farming, and if Jarvan goes for a gank, Rek'Sai can simply match it with the ultimate, and every time that happens, even if they go break even, Rek'Sai goes up a camp. And over time, that just keeps adding more and more and more, and eventually it'll be it can be the straw that breaks the camel's back. This is a little bit too aggressive by SKT. This invade, this is completely unnecessary. All they need to do is just kind of reset, and now in this position, what you want to do is, okay, so Rek'Sai, you want to have his ultimate up, and you want to have 3 people in mid. You want to have Renekton shoving top, or you want to have 4 people in mid, 0, and let top get shoved back into you, and just have Rek'Sai at bottom, and have him plant strategic ultimates around Baron and around mid, and just use Rek'Sai as the split pusher now. And that way you can conserve Renekton's teleport, so that if a fight goes in your favor, and let's say that you crush EDG, you just, boom, teleport to bot lane, or boom, teleport to top lane, and all of a sudden they lose a fucking inhibitor. So it's really important to entertain the dynamics of all the teams. SKT is a lot more powerful at stalemates and at tugging at them, David versus Goliath style. Whereas EDG really just needs that brute force juggernaut, we need to just get in there and do something. Which is, kind of funny given that SKT has the engage, but they can use the engage, they can turn the engage into defense. Oops, sorry, I hit pause. Ryze just shoves the lane, and I think this is a good choice at this point, because the need for stalemating is over, because they've accrued such a lead. So now SKT is like, okay, you want to fight? Okay, we'll fight. And so they just keep, what you want to do now as SKT is you want every lane pulsating. Preferably, I use pulsate as a way that you want every lane going the same way at the same time. Generally, that's an extremely difficult thing to do in pro play, to get a pulse going, but it is something that can be done, and you definitely can manipulate lanes to do that for you, and, you know, you can be like a perfect orchestrator, I guess, of it. But what you want to do now is keep this all dark, and when you keep this all dark, what ends up happening is Mako and Clearlove, they need to devote wards to regaining the neutral part of vision, and then they need to devote wards to the actual contestation, wherever that happens, in which case that's a 2-for-1. So SKT wins out. It's Black Friday for SKT. Flash by Faker onto Deft, and unlucky. Really nice play. And I keep Renekton in bot lane because he has teleport. This is a really nice play, so they're abusing the Scuttle Crab position because they know that, you know, the gap closed with Braum and Rex, you know, Rek'Sai goes in, Braum jumps to him, etc. Ultimate, if EDG misstep, could just lead to the game ending instantly. You have Renekton in bot lane because you know that they can't match, they can't send Darius down to deal with Renekton. They have to bring numerous people to Baron. If they go too deep into Baron, then it's all too easy for Renekton to just get a flank teleport off. So, okay, all this match I've just been talking about numerous mistakes and stuff that SKT have been doing, and, you know, why that is. So let's talk about, you know, I mean, I talked a little bit about what SKT could do better, so let's talk about what EDG can do better at this point in time. So at this point in time, you need 2 of your lanes to be really bad for you. It's basically the lesser of 2 poisons. So you need this lane to literally be on top of you, and you need this lane to actually be on top of you. The issue that you're going to have, however, is that you need to, rather than have Darius down here, you probably actually need Echo down here rather than Darius, because Darius adds a lot more utility to protection than Echo would give to his team. And so then you would just have Echo down here, and you would have 3 people here, and then you would have 1 person trying their absolute hardest to just stalemate this, and then you need to try to bait SKT into taking a fight. Give up the next dragon, give up the next dragon, allow yourself to recuperate and scale. You can live with not having, you know, the added damage onto onto towers. You can live without having that movement speed, because you don't need that movement speed. You're not going to catch a Sivir team if you want to, because all of your stuff is just going to be reliant on Flash Tibbers, or it's going to be reliant on Flash Cataclysm, etc. If they want to catch you, you're not running from it anyway. If you are running from it, it's probably going to be via some sort of a Cataclysm into EQ Escape, or it's going to be a defensive Tibbers. So just acknowledge that you know what you do need and what you don't need, and this is what I was talking about, where if you get, you know, baited out too far, then Renekton could potentially just create a flank, and that would end the game. I also like how Rek'Sai goes for Solari's Locket, and he doesn't have boots because, again, it was that dynamic that we were talking about. He doesn't need tier 2 boots to match Jarvan. He doesn't need Deadman's play with how all the lanes played out. In other circumstances, other team comps, depending on how the games evolve, you know, in the early and mid-game, and how people choose to play out the lanes, Rek'Sai will need the Deadman's Plate. He will need the tier 2 boots. You know, he can't just be reliant on his ultimate because, you know, there's too many places for him to be at any given time. So really like Bengi's acknowledgement of how everything plays out, and he just sits on the tier 1 boots. I also like that Mako acknowledged that there was that dual vision contestation that we were talking about, how they have to add wards just to gain control of the neutral territory, and then they need wards for the actual contestation itself, and so he has Ruby Sights to it already. It's very impressive to see. Now in this case, you just basically you give the side lane farm to Ryze and Renekton always. If you had a different AD carry, you would potentially show up and give the AD carry that. But the thing is that Bang has already kind of hit the power spike that is necessary for the team fight. Static Shiv, Quicksilver, Tier 2 boots, Eye Edge. He doesn't really need much more. All that he needs to do is be useful for his ultimate, because the enemy team doesn't, they're not really caring about Bang. Bang is just gonna have free deal the entire time. There's too much attention being pulled away from him. I would have liked to have seen Faker though with a sweeper's lens this game over the yellow trinket, but I guess he was so far ahead. The yellow trinket does make sense, in some cases, but I think in most cases Oracle is going to be better. It's all fine. Now they're just looking for a pick, and now they're trying to just get all the lanes going at once, and I think at this point you just orchestrate a 1-4-0. Skip forward a little bit. So now they're just going to get the dragon, and this is... You have to do this. Just give it up, okay? Give up the fact, like, this is the most boring part of League of Legends. It is one of the hardest to do, discipline-wise. Just keep eating your Wraiths and your Wolves if you can, your Golems if you can. Surrender all outer tier towers, and just try to take a fight underneath tower. You need to ace them twice to come back. You are so far behind right now. Can't have Darius be in... actually, no, I'm sorry. I'm completely wrong. You can have Darius be in top lane. Given that they've committed 5 people to bot. Committing 5 to bot is incorrect. They should have just done a 1-4, or 0-1-4. 0-1-4, because then if Darius commits to top lane, then what ends up happening is you get bot, and then... Okay, so let's say you leave one person here, okay? I guess in this case it would be Rek'Sai. So you leave Rek'Sai in mid, and you go 4 bottom, you go 0 top as SKT, okay? You get the 4 things in bottom, and then you shove them back to here, and you go up, you match them here, because obviously EDG is going to be coming in to the mid tower, etc., and then you unite with Rek'Sai, boom, and then this wave is over here, you move up, you eat their wolves if it's here, you back up into the river, recall, freeze top lane. And now you basically say to EDG, okay, come at me, because the only lane that you can do anything with is mid lane. And if they don't come at you at mid lane, then what ends up happening is you get your entire jungle, you continue to freeze top lane, and then after everything's been cleared, you've absorbed all the resources that are available on the map. You have Rek'Sai or Renekton at that point, depending on... Or actually, I guess you'd shove Renekton into bot lane, you put Rek'Sai at top, and you just have one person shoved back, and you have one person shoved down, and you have 3 people stalemate. Once someone crosses the boundary of in between the dead tier 2 tower and dead tier 1, okay, then you unite with them, and you go into a 1-0-4 or a 4-0-1, depending on how the enemy team reacts. Something, when SKT, however, does surrender, when they do a full-on reset, when they give EDG time to breathe, this is the opportunity where they need to find, so this is going to sound very weird, they need to find wards that SKT have placed, and they need to give them a false ward. They need to basically make SKT think that they're safe in some areas. So there's a lot of wards down here, right? So let's say somehow, okay, you know this ward is here, okay, you leave this up, and then let's say that you know that another ward is here. You leave this up, and then you clear these 2 wards, and then somehow you inch your way in. You look for a cheese. You need to look for some sort of a cheese right now, because a cheese, like, Tibbering Rise and just absolutely blowing up Faker, that's gonna re-give you control of one lane. Okay, so that's kind of like, your arm is tied down, and then, by killing Rise, you cut the rope around it, and you regain control of it. Just slowly inch back into the match. But they didn't go for anything like that. Trying to hold mid tower is just, like, I don't know. I mean, hopefully... Jarvan Jenkins. The bloodline ends now. I think that should be a fucking movie. Like, let's just watch that again. He's like, alright, chums up, let's do this. And then he just like, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing? Like, Faker didn't even know what's going on. He's like, hold on. He's like, oh, watch. He's like, wait. He's like, he's so in shock, he just keeps running. Like, what the hell? Oh, man. Okay. Now you just go for, yeah, this is fine. And they do a replay. I've already seen that. It's really just give this. You can't take a fight like this. You need to get some sort of a pick. You need to get Fog of War advantage somewhere. You need the high ground. Also, to those watching, obviously I don't mean an actual high ground. I mean high ground in terms of, you know, Fog of War vision. At this point, everything just kind of goes very slow, and this is where you do stuff like 1-4-0s, etc., and you let one lane die, or you do 1-3-1s, the way that I talked about earlier with Renekton and Rek'Sai. Renekton, Ryze, and Rek'Sai, they have a fetish for the letter R. Put Ryze in bot lane, I don't like that. Even though he has teleport up, I still think that's unnecessary. Righteous Glory on Annie. At this point, I don't know if that's actually. I guess it is. But I think it's irrelevant. I think you should just play around Flash, and you should go more defensive for your team. Although Mikhails doesn't really do anything against Ryze because the rune prisons just come too frequent. But I think Righteous is a poor choice. And then this is what SKT did. Force EDG to fight for the neutral vision, and then kill them when they go for the actual contested vision. And this is it. Faker just gets in there. They get on to Faker, Seraphs gets popped. Deft ends up, killing people, but it doesn't really matter because they don't realize clearly what's happening in the back. Well, obviously they realize it, but... Flash isn't coming up. Can he slice and dice? No, but he gets that out of him, and now you can just keep all the lanes pushed. Now, that wasn't too bad of a fight, but you have to look at what they invested versus what SKT invested. They invested a lot more resources than SKT did, which means on the next fight, SKT just will end up obliterating them. In this position, I think actually 4th Dragon is more of a priority than Baron because even with Kalista, I don't think that EDG can shred it that fast. And I think that they already... okay, so as EDG, you can't go for Baron. Okay, you can't even go over here. You have to assume that SKT is going to have this all warded up. So SKT needs to prioritize Dragon in this situation because that'll give them the insurance. It'll also give them the Exodia. In terms of if they get the 5th Dragon, then the game is guaranteed to end at that point. And again, EDG cannot blitz Baron in time, and SKT does not need to commit as many resources to doing Dragon. Like, they can easily just do a 2-man or like a 3-man, and then leave 2 people in the mid lane to kind of stalemate it and prevent EDG from going for any sort of Baron shenanigans. And if they go for any sort of Dragon shenanigans, then, you just unite as 5 and you take the Dragon, and then you take a team fight. So it's fine. SKT ends up doing that. All is well. Yep, they can't win. They can't win the neutral or the contested vision. They can match on the neutral still, but that doesn't matter. Skip forward a little bit. So now literally it's just rinse, wash, repeat. This is like the waiting game. It's sort of like, you know, you're a bird and you know that, you know, something is hiding, and as soon as it comes out, you just swoop in and kill it. That's all SKT is doing. Complete standoff. And this will be the end push. Too big now. Server ult comes on, and this is what I was talking about. Even you can't run from them, even if you want to, unless it's gonna be through a defensive Tibbers or something. But at this point, it's way too far behind. That's the final push. So okay, that's it. For that VOD review. I didn't get to talk about some of the items or the itemization and stuff, but I think that's fine.